Hi, this is Victoria coming to you live from the dive from Halifax, Nova Scotia, the home port of the Sea Hunters. Today we are at the Fairview Lawn Cemetery, which is home to the majority of the Titanic victims buried here in Halifax. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic left on her maiden voyage with over 2,200 passengers and crew members aboard. 4 days later, she struck an iceberg south of Newfoundland. She sank in 2 hours, 40 minutes. Just over 700 survivors and lifeboats were rescued by the Carpathia and taken to New York. Many were buried at sea, but 209 bodies were brought to Halifax, the closest major port to the area of the sinking. All of the Titanic victims thought to be Protestant were buried in the Fairview Lawn Cemetery. The Titanic sank at 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912. Given the freezing temperatures, it was believed that most of the victims died of exposure soon after the sinking. The number on the gravestone is the number assigned when the body was found. In many cases, there were no distinguishing marks or personal belongings that enabled a positive identification of the body. However, thanks to careful research based on details provided in the coroner's files, a number of Titanic victims have been identified in recent years. The company that owned the Titanic, the White Star Line, purchased a section of the land in Fairview Lawn Cemetery and paid for small, black granite headstones engraved with the names and the number of the victim and the date of the tragedy. The cost of any additional engravings or more elaborate stones was assumed by the families, friends, or other groups. Of the 150 Titanic victims buried in Halifax, about 40 remain unidentified. Careful notes were made regarding clothing, jewelry, papers, and other personal effects found on the bodies. Thanks to the meticulous records, dedicated researchers have been able to establish the identity of a number of Titanic victims in recent years. It was often a tiny clue that enabled researchers to trace the identity of a victim. The letters JH sewn on an undergarment proved invaluable in identifying Titanic victim number 3, who was a woman. Based on the passenger list, only one woman lost in the disaster had the initials JH. Her name was Jenny Henriksson. She was from Stockholm, Sweden, and was immigrating to Michigan with relatives. Jenny Henriksson's name was engraved on her headstone in the Fairview Lawn Cemetery and dedicated in a special ceremony in September 1991. 5 other victims buried in the Fairview Lawn Cemetery were identified and honored at the same ceremony. They were Frank Couch, William Denton Cox, Alan Vincent Franklin, F. Woodford, and a Finnish woman, Wendela Marie Hennion. Her body, number 8, had VH embroidered on her chemise, and she had 150 Finnish marks sewn into her clothes.